Hey everybody, my name is Stu Hamm, and I am coming to you live from the Markbass headquarters in Pescara, Italy. And I'm here today to talk about and tell you about my new signature amplifier and cabinet that I designed with the geniuses here at Markbass. The head we call the S.T.U, which is the solid and tube unifier, and we call it that because this wonderful head has a really great sounding solid state side and a wonderful sounding tube side. And we worked really hard to make it so that each side sounds great separately and that they really blend well together. And as we go on, I'm going to play some examples of how they sound separately and together so you can hear how versatile this amp is. Now I'm also coming out with a signature Stu Hamm Markbass cabinet. And what's interesting about this cabinet is that it's a 215 cab. And my whole life I've used 4x10 cabinets or 8x10s. So I was a little skeptical at first, but you know what? The thing sounds great. It's super lightweight and easy to transport. It's a really nice size. You know, it's larger than a traditional 4x10 cabinet, but a little smaller than an 8x10 or giant big Ampeg cabinet. But it looks cool, looks rock and roll. It matches very well with the big knobs and the cool lights and the simplicity of the head. And they look great together. And for 215s, as you can hear, it's got incredible clarity. It has an adjustable horn that really helps the snap on the high end when you're snapping or slapping your bass. And put together, you've got a really great, modern, easy to use, lightweight, great looking rock and roll rig. The Markbass S.T.U amp and cabinet. I want to talk you through some of the features of this 1,000-watt amp that I designed with Markbass, the S.T.U, the solid tube unifier amp. 1,000 watts. Number one, it looks great. It's rock and roll. It's got the signature yellow and black Markbass colors. Nice lights, LEDs, big knobs. Looks great, lightweight. Obviously has a passive and active input. So it won't clip if you're playing an active bass like you do for me. Has a very easy to use 7-band graphic equalizer. When you heard what I played, I just set it flat, but obviously that's great for different rooms you're playing in if you need to cut a little mids or add some highs depending on the environment you're in. Very adjustable, very easy to use. Nice lit up LEDs on there so you can see where it's sliding if you want to create, you know, smiley face EQ like a lot of guys want to use, or if you're in a room where it's really bottom end, you can just lower the bottom end there so you can tell easily by the lights by looking at it how you've set your EQ. Then over here, this big knob is your master volume, right? There it is. For right now, let's set it right there straight up at 12 o'clock. And then we have on the left side over here, the solid state gain, and then we have the tube gain, and they're two completely different sounding sides of the amp that sound great individually and together. So again, let's set the EQ flat, and let's put the master volume straight up at noon, and let's turn up the solid state side. And then you get that really clear sound that a lot of post-Jocko, jazz fusion players play. It's ideal if you're playing chords. because it gives you the clarity and the attack, but still has a lot of low end. And again, this is just with the EQ set flat right there. So, you know, you really get, like I said, clarity, really speaks. It's great for playing harmonics. And for sort of that post-Jocko, you know, really clean mid-rangey sound. So clear, but also nice and thick and round sounding. Warm sounding, but clear. Now let's turn that off, and I'm going to keep the same settings on my bass and the EQ flat. Let's go over to the tube side. You're going to see that this is much more of a round, warm side. So if you're playing, you know, like an old classic rock song like Whipping Post, which is a great sound. I mean, in combination with these 215s, you get that really nice fat bottom, but there's still a lot of definition. And that really different sort of, you know, rock sound. It's also great for slapping, because let's go back for a minute and let's listen to the solid state side for a slapping tone. It's really bright. But if you use the tube side, it gives a little more of a round sound. Right, so nice and fat, nice and clear. Again, the solid state side's great if you want to play some like Steve Harris sort of metal. That, rock and roll. Now, what's neat is the way that the two sides will interact together. So what I want to do is I want to play the same riff and show you what they sound like with each side individually and then mixed in together. So right now I'm going to pick a song from my second solo record that a lot of Stu Hamm fans know me for. It's called Black Ice, one of my more recognizable bass lines. So again, we got the EQ set flat here. I'm going to set my bass flat, bass and treble using both pickups. And you know, this sounds pretty much with the solid state side. It sounds pretty much like the gear that I was using when I recorded it way back when I played this lick. Right? Really clear, but also with a lot of depth. You know, some solid state amps can sound a little electronic or thin. You can see with the combination with the cabinet, the lightweight cabinet, it sounds very clear, but also very thick. Now, if I played the same lick with just the tube side, it's going to sound like this. Nice, right? Nice and fat. But now here's what's cool. I would use that sound if I was playing a really, maybe a simpler, slower, less active bass line. But if I wanted to add a little clarity back, what I would do is I would start with a solid state sound. Now what happens when you add in a little bit of the tube to that? Right? Let's get a really nice and even blend. Let's do the same amount of the solid state in the tube, which gives you the clarity of the solid state with some of the warmth and roundness of the tube side, and that's got a really rockin' tone that sounds something like this. So there you have it. You know, I play with a lot of different styles of musicians and lots of different kinds of music. When I play with DV Markbass guitar endorser Dean Brown, I'll probably be playing more jazzy material, which would lead me to use some more of the solid state side. If I was playing with, as I often have, Greg Howe, another DV Mark guitar player, I'd probably use a little more rock sound, with a little more volume maybe. It's not exactly how the riff goes, Greg, sorry about that, but I haven't played with you for a while, so it sounds something like that. And there you have it. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the cabinet a little bit. Let's play a slap sound with both the tube and the solid state side set even. And let's turn the horn off. And it's going to sound like this. Which is good, especially if you're playing maybe some like bonehead rock, you know. You know, if you want to emulate a 70s bass player with dead strings or flat wound strings or an acoustic amp or an Ampeg, you can get that sound out of it. Now, if you want a little more snap out of it, all we got to do is turn up the horn. And then you've got that sort of snappy Steve Harris sound. Now, if we set it someplace in the middle, obviously you've got a blend. Pretty easy to use. We're going to show you in another video how lightweight this thing is to do. And again, I really like the size of it. Easy enough to carry around and put in the back of your Volvo, like I do when I'm doing local gigs. And we certainly put a lot of effort and thought into just how cool it looks and how rock and roll it looks. Big knobs, bright lights. I really like the size of the cab. You know, for some gigs, if you want to really, obviously if you're on stage doing a rock show, it's got to look cool. I mean, that's such an important part of music. While we all play music, is to look cool and to have people think that we look cool. And sometimes a 4x10 is going to be fine if you're playing a jazz gig or a fusion gig, but if you're playing a rock gig, you want something a little bigger. And this is certainly, with the lightweight technology, I can pick this thing up easy enough myself and load it in the car. If you've got an 8x10 or old Ampeg cabinet or something that's like carrying a B3 to a gig. So I'm super happy with the way it turned out. The Markbass S.T.U 1000-watt amp, very versatile, very good looking, very lightweight and easy to transport. And I would urge you to go to your closest guitar center and check it out and play one, and then order 3 or 4 for you and your friends.